Judges chapters 20 to 21 today, and that brings us to the end of the book of Judges, which has been weird, to say the least. This one picks up immediately following the previous video, where there was the Sodom and Gomorrah incident in the town of Gibeah, and the concubine was Sodom and Gomorrah'd all night long and died. The Levite, who doesn't have a name, chopped her up into 12 different bits and sent them off to the different corners of Israel. Anyway, we then have Israel all gathers together, Israel presumably excluding these Benjaminites who caused the problem, and Mr. Levite, who still doesn't have a name, by the way. It's really weird. It's a bit odd and random. Why don't you have a name? We have some really odd people who don't have very big roles, who have names, and this guy, who has quite an important part to play in this, doesn't have a name. But anyway, so Israel comes together. They're mighty miffed about this, and there's 400 soldiers raised up ready to deal with this. And the Levite says to them, what are we going to do? And I suppose logically, the Israelites go to the Benjaminites and say, hand over the people who committed this terrible act. And it's not clear at all how many people were involved. It just said there were wicked men and they surrounded the house. So, I mean, we're not talking 5, but it seems unlikely we're talking 50, surely. And it's certainly not going to be in thousands or anything like that, is it? I don't think. But oddly, the Benjaminites, which is a hard word to say, come back and say, no, you can't have them. So it would seem that they stand behind the behaviour of these wicked people. And these are Benjaminites, who are therefore Israelites, who are supposed to be goodies. And it's a bit weird. I don't quite understand why that suddenly went so wrong. The Benjaminites, which is getting harder to say, I'm discovering, decide that what they're going to do instead of handing over the perpetrators of this terrible thing, they're going to get together all their soldiers, being 26,000, beg your pardon, and they're going to fight 400,000. There's so much in this story that just makes no sense. It does note that there are 700 additional soldiers for the Benjaminites who are left-handed and particularly good with a sling and a stone. Like there's some sort of correlation between left-handedness and ability to hit people in the head with a rock from a long way away. Don't know. But anyway, so we're talking 26,700 people against 400,000 people, and they think this is a better idea than handing over the Sodom and Gomorrah crowd to be punished, i.e. executed. At this point, we have another weird bit, and the Israelites who are going to do the fighting, they go to God to check in with him, say, is this right, and who should go first? God says, yes, go do the fight, and the tribe of Judah shall be the first ones to fight. There seems like an obvious problem in this, and if there's going to be a first to fight, presume that means there's going to be a second to fight. So what happens to the first? It just seems like a bit of a bad start that no one picks up on. Oh dear, that's not a good sign that there's going to be a second lot, because the first lot presumably are not going to do very well. Also weird though is that there's no, apart from this original mention of the tribe of Judah being the first to fight, there's no other further references to this being segregated in such that it's Judah doing the fighting. So it's really odd. Anyway, they go into the battle on the first day, and the 26,700 Benjaminites managed to kill 22,000 Israelites on the first day. So the Israelites are the goodies. The Benjaminites are very much the baddies. And so stupid baddies, they've decided a civil war would make more sense than handing over really, really bad people. And somehow God has said, yep, go. So God is with the Israelites. It's not like there's any question this is an unjust conflict or anything. And the Benjaminites kick the crap out of the Israelites. So the Israelites come away and they go back to God and say, are you sure we should be doing this? And they do some sacrifices and some fasting. And God says, yep, off you go back and do it again. So they go back the second day, and then another 18,000 Israelites are killed by the Benjaminites. So weird. The Israelites go back to God again. It's like, this is crazy. We're getting our butts kicked. What's going on? More sacrifices, more fasting, the rest of it. God says, right, go again. This time I will deliver them into your hands. So I'm not sure why that couldn't have been in the first place. But the Israelites, to confuse things, come up with a strategy this time. So the first time it sounded a little bit like the Israelites were standing there like prunes, and there's the Benjaminites coming up to them with their swords and all done. This time they come up with a strategy just to confuse it, because the strategy worked, and this time the Benjaminite army are wiped out. So everything is good this time, and the Israelites win, all is fine. They kill all the Benjaminite soldiers, and then they go into the city of Gibeah, where the offending event took place and they kill everybody, which not quite cool with that, in the sense that, I mean, yes, that's, as a society they've failed in the sense that they should have brought those wicked people to justice by handing them over, but most of the people there will have had no say in that whatsoever, nothing to do with it, and it's all very extreme. And I think we're talking women and children being killed here again, so that old chestnut. And it's just, I don't know, a time where there was clearly a lot less respect for life than there is now. Well, I'd like to think there's a lot more respect for life now anyway, for most people. But it's something we've seen before where God says, okay, this time you're going to win. And you think, okay, great, but they go and do something differently. So, yeah, okay, this time they went with the strategy. Perhaps, of course, they won. There's 400,000 of them. There's 26,000 of this lot. So, if they actually don't stand there like prunes, then obviously they're going to win. But the Bible seems to like doing this and changing variables, and suddenly so the answer doesn't look as clear as it was. I don't know, anyway. There's an odd bit of repetition in here too, because within chapter 20, you have the account of the Israelites sacking the Gibeonite city, or sorry, the city of Gibeah, the Benjaminite city. But then they sort of tell it again, and it sounds like almost a different account. There's no conflict or anything between the accounts, so it doesn't seem to make much difference. But I thought that might be interesting, because at some stage we're going to have to come back and deal with the question of, are we actually reading what was written and things passing down? And I guess that's relevant to that it looks like two different sources put together for some reason. Anyway, things then get weird again, because the Israelites are now sad that the Benjaminites have not quite been wiped out, but they've been severely depleted in number. And as part of this process, there was an oath sworn by the rest of the Israelites that they wouldn't give their daughters to the Benjaminites. Wow, you try saying it 3 times, it's really hard. And therefore, they're all a little bit sad that the tribe of Benjamin is going to disappear, and they're going to have gone from 12 tribes of Israel to 11 tribes of Israel. So they think, what can we do about this? And there's a rule that for some particular gathering, everyone has to turn up. And they count everybody, all the Israelites, bajillions of them, and discover that one town hasn't come along. So they're, okay, let's go and get that town. They go and they kill everybody except for 400 virgins, and they bring them back and they give them to the Benjaminites. So sort of slightly solving the Benjaminite problem with lack of women. It's weird anyway, isn't it? Turns out that that's not enough. So they come up with this very cunning loophole where they get Israelite women to go, just come over here, Israelite women, and do this thing over here. And then the Benjaminite men who don't have a wife can come and grab them and take them away. Literally, it sounds like they're hiding in the bushes. There's a crowd full of women doing something. They leg it over there, sling her over the shoulder, and disappear back into the bushes. And the idea is this is some sort of loophole, because the Israelites are not giving their daughters to the Benjaminites, and therefore breaking their promise. They're apparently just being kidnapped, and they're not doing anything about that. So it's, I don't know, it finishes on a completely weird, bizarre way to do things. Actually, that sort of sums up nicely. Actually, the last line of the book of Judges says, "In those days Israel had no king, everyone did as they saw fit." Yeah, they really did. I assume I'm missing stuff in all this, obviously, so if someone knows more about this and has anything interesting to say, I'd love to hear it. I've got to go away now and come up with some sort of summary for the whole of the book of Judges and try and make some sort of sense out of that, which is going to be no small task. But otherwise, that's it. Yep, and Judges is done. Summary next video next week, and then we're on to the book of Ruth.